I'm delighted to be here today as the moderator for this panel on the topic that is increasingly important and relevant with all the advances in AI and the increasing usage of cryptocurrency and the increasing rate of cybercrime. Are cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence the new tools of cybercrime? And we're fortunate to have an exceptional panel of experts with us. The first panelist to your right is Mr. Mohammed Khalid Al Jassim. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Mohammed Al Jassim Law Firm and Legal Consulting Group. He is a legal consultant and internationally recognized expert specializing in law enforcement, combating cybercrime, and addressing intellectual property crimes. With extensive expertise in various legal and technical fields, he has contributed significantly to advancing legal frameworks and promoting international cooperation. He is a certified expert in international law enforcement collaboration through Interpol. His areas of expertise include combating cybercrime, preventing intellectual property violations, and providing legal training and consultation. Al Jassim is also an accredited lecturer for the United Nations and has served as a consultant for the National Awareness Project for Drug Prevention. In academia, he has been a lecturer at the National Security College under Kuwait's Ministry of Interior. Additionally, he serves as an arbitrator and mediator at the Kuwait Commercial Arbitration Center. He is licensed to practice law before the Constitutional Court and the Court of Cassation. Al Jassim's professional career includes working as a criminal investigator in Kuwait's Ministry of Interior from 2006 to 2016, and as an Interpol officer at its General Secretariat from 2013 to 2016. Our second panelist is Mr. Mustafa Yunal Ertan. He's currently the chief of UNODC Regional Center for Combating Cybercrime and head of program office in the state of Qatar. He has over 2 decades of experience in strategic planning, partnership building, and the management of development programs in the fields of law enforcement, criminal justice, and security sector reform. He has particularly focused on work through his postings in Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and the Gulf region. He has been working at the UNODC for over 10 years, where he managed international law enforcement capacity building programs. Prior to his current role, Mr. Ertan was the head of UNODC program office in Tajikistan. Prior to joining UNODC, Mr. Ertan served as the project manager for the first 2 cybercrime and digital forensics projects at Interpol in its global Center for Innovation based in Singapore. He also worked as a UN peacekeeping officer in East Timor and as a superintendent of police in the Turkish police. So thank you so much for joining us today. You have a very diverse background and experience. I hope we'll have a very interesting discussion today. I'm curious first, can you start by sharing your experience, how your professional experiences have intersected with cybercrime or cryptocurrency? So do you have any related world incidents that you want to share with the audience?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah. On the onset, I would like to thank the state of Qatar for this organization, the excellent organizations, and my thanks goes to His Highness the Emir of the state of Qatar, which transcends all excellence in terms of the diversity of topics, especially this topic and concerning the topic of today, AI and its intersection with the cryptocurrency and the cybercrimes. There are many challenges in this realm, as we see. I can simply just say, if we want to divide the topics of discussions into main areas, for each topic we can address the challenges. At the same time, what are the available solutions to address this crisis or catastrophe, so to speak, in terms of the cyber crimes and its relation to AI and cryptocurrency? At the beginning, I started as a investigative investigation officer in the state of Kuwait. I was specialized in electronic crimes, e-crimes. Then I joined the Interpol as the focal point between to address or resolve any issue. Also, I work in the field of investigation, so we were supporting the investigations when it's come to e-crimes as well as train the member countries. However, the dilemma now or the problem we are facing comes to the laws and the international agreements or conventions. All countries are embarking on training their security forces and law enforcement officers to combat this kind of crimes. However, we'll come to the main point, which is the international cooperations. Yes, there are meetings, the organizations are there, and countries host conventions, sorry, agreements, seminars. As we are here, we are discussing the solutions, the available solutions to address and combat these kinds of crimes. However, we still, at the end of the day, it is the issue is the implementations of these international agreements and conventions. How do we implement these the cooperations between the central banks and the law enforcement agencies? So I think there are two gaps here. The first one at the local level, national level, in terms of the coordinations and communications between the relevant the stakeholders, the central bank, and other companies that works in the field of the new technologies. And internationally, we have the AI companies. They are developing the AI solutions. The question is, are there regulations, are there are laws or governing the development of these innovative solutions, and if there are risks associated with these developments, have we thought about preemptive actions, solutions before launching these services? So today I will focus mainly on the actual problems, issues. I will not speak about the definitions of e-crimes because this has been discussed and we have passed this level. I'm not. So we should address about the actual issues and problems that happened and how we can reach solutions to these problems and address these problems. So if you have any question later on, maybe I will dwell. Then
And the solutions later on. I would like first to hear from Mr. Mustafa your experience with cybercrime and AI and cryptocurrency.
Dr. Al Sabah, thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be here today in the Doha Forum. Um, you asked me about my background. I would like to start by stating that I've started my career as a Turkish police officer back in 2000. And one of the first assignments that I got was in the fraud unit. In fact, at those days, I was actually looking into investigations of crimes, fraud crimes, mostly using identity theft. And of course, at the time, advanced techniques of, for example, copying credit cards, and then of course identity theft and credit cards starting point. And then from there, we were looking into fraud of documents, fraudulent documents, and stuff like that. So I've started as a police officer in the Turkish police. After that, for about 10 years, I was in the Turkish police. From fraud unit, I went to organized crime department, where I learned that majority of the crimes that we are dealing with in terms of fraud cases, for example, requires really good planning from the police side. So after about 10 years, I joined UNODC. I spent some time in Southeast Asia. I learned a lot of, capabilities, capacities of criminal networks there. And of course, the golden triangle is one area that was mentioned a lot on drugs investigation and crimes associated with organized crimes. Then from there, I joined Interpol for 2 years. As you already mentioned in my introduction, I had the privilege of running two projects, especially in 2014 to 16, on cybercrime investigations and digital forensics. And after that, I joined back again to UNODC to spend some time in organized crime mostly, not purely on cybercrime. But just recently, for the past year and a half, I'm the chief of the Regional Center for Combating Cybercrime in Doha. This is a newly established training center, and I would like to come to this point when we have further discussions. Thank you for the chance.
Thank you for your answers. I want to know specifically, how do cyber criminals operate from your experience?
Okay, so cyber criminals are actually now, I mean, if you talk about in the past, of course, criminals are always looking for vulnerabilities. They are looking for chances for them to commit a crime. So they are looking for possible areas where they can infiltrate, possible vulnerabilities. And of course, they are also looking for extreme or very fast gain. So these are the two main factors that the criminals are using. Of course, cyber criminals are also utilizing the same, or they are having the same perception, same concepts. If you are talking about cyber criminals these days, they are getting more and more sophisticated. Basically, I would like to mention a recent report from Southeast Asia where I mentioned that I spent some time. The October 2024 report of UNODC on transnational organized crime and the convergence of cyber-enabled fraud, underground banking, and technological innovation in Southeast Asia report. It actually mentions that only in 2023, the amount of money that was used that was lost in the crimes in Southeast Asia alone was about 18 billion to 36 billion US dollars. So if you look at this, you would understand that cyber criminals are now becoming more and more organized. In fact, we have in this report accolades that the criminals are actually utilizing venues, places where it was built for the purpose, like a compound full of people that are pushed to crime to commit crime. What I'm trying to say is that people nowadays are being trafficked to locations to actually call you to do these scams. So it's becoming more and more sophisticated. Technology is one part, but still, service crime as a service is something that we even start to hear and talk about. So, in like software as a service is something that many of you have heard, but now crime as a service is something that we are hearing. People are sophisticated in one case, for example, and so identity theft is done by a group of criminals, and then spoofing is done by another criminal. Cryptocurrency exchange is done by another criminal group. So these are becoming more and more organized from our perspective.
Given this is actually outrageous, I didn't know about this trafficking, human trafficking example, and how it intersected with spamming, call spams.
Yeah.
And so, given the seriousness of and how elaborate these attacks have become, you talked about the challenges between cooperation between the different stakeholders. What are these challenges? Why isn't there progress made given the seriousness of these attacks?
بالفعل اليوم احنا عندنا احصائيات كبيره قاعد تجي ان والله
Indeed, we have a high number of reports regarding the call spams. So we are trying as much as possible to train the relevant stakeholders. And today we are facing the current challenges. So primarily, it's a quick call. It's a quick crime as well. So the gains are very quick. So let's say if a call spam takes place, or let's say that one person is actually trading in a specific wallet and there's a specific demand and a specific rate for investment. And let's say that the ad actually showed an accredited known company. So the transfer was made by the user, and once the transfer was done, On every installment, for example, there are also interest or even penalties that are imposed. So imagine that these payments have been transferred from different users, and until they actually reach the stakeholders, some specific time has passed, and the transaction time can actually take a lot of time. So let's say in our cyber unit, it takes a specific time and specific people to come across this, but the number of these crimes has been rising. But the procedures are also difficult. So the first step is actually the um, reporting mechanism. So the report is actually submitted, then it is studied, then it is sent to the office of the prosecutor, and then it is reviewed again. If there's any other information regarding the perpetrator, then it takes less time. But otherwise, it takes a good amount of time. So we try as much as possible to use AI in order to take these reports, to record the reports and look into them as well. So today there is a common behavior, but we need to have a database for that in order to find these alternatives and in order to be able to employ as well AI. So the AI makes some sort of analysis and tries to correlate between these cases and the information and the different data. So this is when it comes to reporting. As for the internal calls, so most users request, for example, or we have to identify two types of casualties. So first, we're talking about identity theft, for example, or maybe the theft of the wallet. So let's talk about the resident that owns a bank account and that transfers a specific amount to another bank account. So they actually signal the bank account to us. And today, for example, I am comfortable because I am transferring the money not for a commercial party, but for a legal personality that has a legit bank account. So this is the mindset. And then the payment is made, the transfer is made, and the other person thinks, let's take the example of a perfume store or perfume supplier. So they say, for example, we have some concerns regarding a specific people, but instead of paying a 10% tax, if it's gonna become a direct transfer with you, then I can actually uh, only impose or charge 5% of VAT, for example. So they prefer to do it personally and directly with the user. So all both people are actually victims because that store is actually a victim and also a perpetrator or a criminal because that person actually violated the VAT or the tax laws. So let's say that the fraudulent person actually led two people to become victims and casualties. And today there's some sort of, specifically in the criminal area, there are two main important factors. So the material damage or the material transfer. So the transfer was actually done and sent to the fraudulent person. But of course, initially there's no good intention. It is a fraudulent act, and there are many processes that take place from scratch. But at the same time, some cases require a specific amount of time. So the block on or the freeze on the bank account is takes place after a specific period of time. So it takes time. Or maybe it actually requires waiting for the report to be submitted or to be filed. And then the bank looks into these personal cases of freezing a specific bank account. So let's say that the standard procedures do not apply mainly, but we put in place a mechanism between the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Interior and the relevant parties or the relevant authority in reporting and investigation. So this is coordinated as well with the bank. So once the report is received, there is an automatic freeze on the bank account of the perpetrator until they actually investigate into it and look deeper into the report. And it can actually be an accident, but they look into it, and this can lead to another investigation or maybe another attack or another crime in another country. But the communication between these two states and also the conventions, let's say the bilateral conventions in this regard, did not take into consideration the implementation mechanism. So when we go back to these memos or to the reports and also to the supervision of the MOI, we understand that there is a memorandum of understanding, but we actually lack the implementation platform, the implementation mechanism. And there should also be a workshop organized between these different stakeholders. So it's not just the security apparatus or even the foreign ministry, but also the central banks and the other relevant authorities that would expedite the communication and expedite as well the decision making, because this crime is really fast. So one of the solutions would actually be to implement post decision making. So decision is there, but what about the implementation?
I would have liked to have someone from the bank to talk about their perspective. But from your experience, why is it so slow to take action from the bank side or from different stakeholders?
احنا نتكلم اول شيء يفترض.
So first, there should be some internal committees to tackle these difficulties, specifically the communication difficulties between the different stakeholders. So I know that I know the central bank, but there's a specific way of communication. There's a specific channel. There's also the courier and the mailing system, and I will need as well to wait for the main administration to answer, but that takes a lot of time. So by that time, the WhatsApp number could have been hidden, and also the identity could have faded as well. The email could have been deactivated by that time. So we need support groups or maybe subcommittees in order to look into this matter as soon as possible. So today we need the central bank, for example, or maybe the administration within that bank to have an office with its own powers and prerogatives in that regard. So there are specific powers that allow them to conduct this research and these take these steps. So in this regard, we're not gonna wait to receive the report back from the bank and to communicate internally within between the administration to the central bank, because many dilemmas as well could be identified, and then they would resort to the um, mainstream or the standard procedures. But that's a lot of waiting across different institutions and entities before they even provide the right data. So, in order to overcome these hurdles and setbacks, there should be a local convention that is extremely clear with extreme features and that would organize the treatment of such affairs between the different stakeholders. We are party to a convention on this matter with 90 other countries, but the problem is not at the level of the convention but at the implementation phase.
Point
هل تريد أن تضيف على هذه النقطة؟
observed. Yeah.
Thank you so much once again. As we know, all relationships are based on trust. And the financial system, the traditional financial system that we know, is based on the trust that the states are giving to the public. In other words, the banks are there to publish, to print money, and then when they print the money, they accept that this money is going to be utilized in the country, and then the states are actually utilizing this exchange and trust. And there's the central body, as we know, the central banks, that are actually regulating this interaction with people. For example, you are looking into an empty area or a face where you can actually do whatever you think is okay, but there's a huge risk there. Now, of course, reporting is this first one, but again, regulation to me is another thing that you have to support while people are exchanging this. The intriguing part of cryptocurrency is also because like people can actually utilize this to gain excessive amount of money. I mean, excessive amount of value as soon as possible. Um, I remember, I mean, I just noticed that digital asset regulation, for example, of Qatar has just been released recently. And then if you look at that regulation, you would see that some of the tokens were already mentioned, but Bitcoin and stabilized coins were not really explained critically, clearly. So there's still a gray area where the countries are leaving it to the discretion of the users. And if I ask, for example, how many of you have cryptocurrencies, I would probably have no hands. But this is something that is going to be the I think driving sort of force of people's interaction with cryptocurrencies. There's this sense of secrecy, but also at the same time, you feel like you don't want to be missing out. You want to be there. You want to utilize it. But again, it comes down to, as my colleague already mentioned, I think it comes to this first. We have to understand what it is. We have to understand the knowledge, the base. So cryptocurrencies are working on blockchain, and then those blockchain concepts must be clearly understood. If you understand that part, probably you have to understand what is the regulation of the country, what is the regulation of that jurisdiction, and then from there, perhaps you can move on. But of course, criminals will have different views, and making it traceable and making it difficult for people to utilize is not always the solution. I think we also have to make sure that the regulation is going to give the states the ways to investigate and look into deeper interactions.
So it's actually interesting. It's hard to trace cryptocurrency, but it's also hard to trace transactions happening through the traditional banking system, right? And advocates of cryptocurrency will say, you know, it has several advantages. It's decentralized. It enables financial inclusion, giving banking to the unbanked world. And people can see it as an investment opportunity. So a lot of people made money out of cryptocurrency. Did you see? Do you see like a difference in the cybercrime scene with and without cryptocurrency? Did the crime increase just because of cryptocurrency?
مبدئيا
I'd like to highlight an information. My colleague said that if I show of hand, who is dealing or we know that the audience are fully educated. They know that there are flags on dealing with the cryptocurrency. This is not secure, so they are cautious about, you know. But our issue is not the audience here, the educated audience, because they have the knowledge. They can distinguish between crimes and non-crimes manifestations. But we are talking about thousands and thousands, and from the audience who do not have this level of awareness. So our problem, especially in the state of Kuwait, the central bank has launched a specified awareness concerning banking fraud. All banks in Kuwait took part uh, and contributed in. Despite the strength of that campaign, they are still victims to the cyber crimes and so when we attend, when we attend conferences and we see this engagement, we have the false feeling that we have reached 90% of the awareness, and the people, the majority of the people, fully understand the ramifications of these crimes. However, we found out that only 5% only aware and are educated about these sorts of crimes, and 95% are totally ignorant. So this is just a comment on the users. The other point concerning the e-crimes or the uh, so remind me of the question. مسألة صعوبة تتبع من خلال النظم المصرفية التقليدية. هل تعتقد أن الجرائم زادت مع انتشار استخدام العملات الرقمية؟ we have two phases or stages: the exchange of money among banks, and the second stage or phase, if these money, actual money, are changed into cryptocurrency. So in the first stage, it is very easy to trace the money if there is expedite operations and there freeze on accounts, so we can stop crimes. However, if they enter the realm of the crypto countries, we lose control. There are exchange agencies like Western Union. It is a totally different world beyond our control, beyond our. It's unregulated, although these companies like Western Unions, they are active officially and legally active. However, they are not under the control of the prevalent laws. We have worked on a number of cases, and we trace, find out that the identity of the person is fraudulent. There is no levels of control despite the developments and improvements and the advancements in using the e-card, e-ID, and the barcodes. My question to the member countries, and we need to have control and monitoring on the work of Western Union and the other. So our work stopped. Are there any sanctions that are going to be imposed on the countries who do not adhere or comply with the regulatory uh, systems identifying or and also tracing the car plates who visited these branches and received these monies through the AI and the other agencies alike? We have seen an increased activities in some of the Arab countries. We have communicated with the relevant entities. However, still there is no monitoring. The lingering questions always to what extent do we implement the laws and the regulations, and what are the sanctions that could be imposed on non-complying uh, organizations? Have these conventions addressed this issue and the level of implementation? Yes, we do have the laws, regulations, and agreements. What's missing is the mechanisms of implementations. Do you know?
As you mentioned, financial crime investigations are generally relatively easier because there are rules. For example, know your customer is a rule that the banking system has to apply. This is actually being utilized by the financial crime investigators because what they have to do is to follow the money. So follow the money principle is a lot easier if the financial system is very much established with regulations. When it comes to cryptocurrency, of course, this anonymity and then decentralized structure is actually giving a lot of empty spaces for investigators. To be able to investigate a cryptocurrency, you have to actually get the control of users' cryptocurrency wallet. And most of the time, these wallets, the, the wallet is the only, one of the best ways to get the access to the cryptocurrency investigation lead. Um, if you look from this angle, of course, there are a couple of things that we have to be focusing on. For example, again, from the investigator side, they have to understand the cryptocurrency concept. We have to increase the knowledge. We have to increase the awareness. We have to also focus on the policy, and then increase the capacity of the investigators. And then eventually, of course, we have to do the coordination because in one country maybe this cryptocurrency regulation is not there, and it is in the gray line, not banned but not encouraged, but perhaps somebody from another country is actually utilizing cryptocurrencies to bring this um, uh, you know um, problem here to this country. And you said that if there are increase in the use of cryptocurrency in criminal cases, yes, we are seeing more and more. For example, ransomwares are being actually now almost all of them are requesting cryptocurrencies. Again, to make sure that the perpetrators are not known, they are hidden from different jurisdictions. We also see, for example, dark web transactions. So some of the criminals utilizing some of the terrorist organizations are using dark web to actually purchase illicit arms. Drug trafficking is also using dark web. Investment scams, for example, is another type of crimes that we are seeing with the cryptocurrencies because of the people's demand to gain, values and to earn money as soon as possible without any effort. There are so many coins which actually fraudulent coins. Basically, they are not even real, but it was presented in a way that if you invest in this certain number of certain type of currencies, cryptocurrencies, then you will get a lot of money. So these are some of the crimes that we are seeing. And of course, another one that I can say is the money laundering. Of course, people are trying to utilize real money mixed with the cryptocurrencies, and then they try to evade from jurisdictions and AML, CFT regulations.
Uh, Thank you so much for your answers. Um, so, what changes are needed in the legal framework to address these problems?
Well, like I said before, the recent regulation that, for example, Qatar already put in place is one of the steps that we can see towards a solution. But I would like to also go back to once again the point where I mentioned before that in order to fight against cryptocurrencies or financial crimes using cryptocurrencies, we have to make sure that each institution understands this concept. Again, cryptocurrency from, for example, law enforcement perspective, or from jurisdiction, judiciary, the prosecutors. We have to increase the knowledge and awareness of the cryptocurrency environment. And then from there, we have to look into awareness raising also in the public, how these, cryptocurrencies are used and how criminals can actually target public, your investment plans using techniques, fraudulent fraud techniques. And from there, so if I say knowledge increase, awareness increase, and then we have to focus on maybe again policy. We should not wait for a certain time to come to make this policy discussions, because I think in the past it was much easier for policymakers to lead the public. But these days, technology and advancements are actually making policymakers lag behind the development. So I think it really requires this awareness and knowledge base to be very strong for policymakers as well. And from there, I would like to state that capacity building, both investigators, prosecutors, judiciary as well, and certainly, as my colleague Mohammed mentioned, international cooperation, because these are, cryptocurrency fraud cases or crimes with artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency is actually very fast. And then maybe another country has already done some investigations that you have to be aware of.
Thank you. So, we have time for a couple of questions from the audience. Yes.
Good morning, and thank you for the discussion. I think cryptocurrency is a bit more established from a connection to cybercrime. However, artificial intelligence is gaining mainstream use. Can you share incidences where artificial intelligence has been used for cybercrime?
Thank you. طبعا هذا سؤال.
Of course, this question does not tackle our region. We're mostly focusing on our area, but it has been used in order to for identity theft or maybe some visuals theft with the help of AI. So some we have developed some programs, but unfortunately, some other programs that benefit the perpetrators have also been developed, and they have been used in specific usages or specific areas, such as identity theft or content modification. Such like the content of banks. So these uses have actually expedited the process of perpetrating similar acts in reality. But today, the AI, let's talk about the chatbots, for example. They are giving commands and they provide us with answers, but the AI chatbot is currently different. So I expect, currently we do not have any fraudulent chatbots, but we expect it in the upcoming months, maybe. And we have talked yesterday or the day before about the possibility of developing AI that would actually uh, be able to spot any fraudulent perpetrators, a man or a woman, or even a user that can be abused, for example, with such fraudulent acts. But the AI gives almost accurate to inaccurate information that would misinform the bot, for example. But let's say that the use of the artificial intelligence is only a simple usage. And for me, it's innocent cases that we are talking about. The AI has been used only to spot the caller ID or maybe to change the voice or the tone or even for some basic fraudulent acts.
Okay, so no other questions. Yeah, last question. Time passed very quickly. It's a very fascinating topic.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So basically, there are some countries with a very weak legislative system for supervision. Um, and at the same time, people want to have cryptocurrency there established. Like in my country, Tunisia, cryptocurrency is basically money laundering in the legal system. So basically, how can we find and establish a framework that that integrate in it cryptocurrency, but also takes into consideration the current system of legislative system in the country? Thank you so much.
Can I? Please, please. Okay. So thank you so much for the question. I would like to just answer the first question as well to also come to that point. I mean, one of the things that we see that AI is being used is, for example, deep fakes. There are lots of synthetically produced videos are being used, for example, to deceive people, but also voice cloning. And we might think that these are some of the things that we only see in the movies, but in fact, it's actually happening. I'm looking at the report that I mentioned to you about October 2024 report from Southeast Asia. There are already evidences that the deepfake was used to, for example, do some pig butchering cases, and then also in the business email compromise, faking the CEO calling you on the phone, asking you to send money to certain accounts, for example. So there's also already AI being used to imitate people, to infiltrate into the minds of the people with the realistic sort of expectations. When it comes to the solutions in different countries, I would like to mention that from the UN perspective, I can probably give you a good news that is that there's a new cybercrime convention coming up. As we speak, for example, the General Assembly is going to be adopting, most probably by the end of this month, a new cybercrime convention. And you might think that you didn't mention anything about the cryptocurrency, right? Like, yes, I know, but so basically, this is going to be the first convention internationally, an adopted convention of the cybercrime topics. This, I think, is a good start because member states or the countries are talking to each other about the problems, and they are looking into ways to solve problems. Um, I know that in the EU, for example, there's already a new sort of AI directives or discussions as well. So countries are coming together. I would say, like I said before, we have to start discussing about these matters openly and then start looking into ways how the public is actually using it. I think criminalization is not just a solution. We might have to look into ways to regularize and make it sort of easy as we said with the traditional financial crimes investigations.
Thank you so much for your answers. So I'd like to thank the panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and valuable insights. And I would like to thank the audience for joining in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.